If you asked anyone in Willow Creek, they'd tell you Mark and I were the perfect couple. Two-story house, white picket fence, golden retriever named Tucker. We were basically a Hallmark movie with a mortgage. At least that's what I thought. Mark was charming, the kind of man who could talk his way out of a parking ticket or into a promotion. And I was the wife who kept it all polished. PDA meetings, Sunday potlucks, perfectly ironed shirts. But perfection is a tricky little liar. Started with small things. Late-night work meetings. A lipstick stain that was from a coworker's hug. The sudden gym obsession, though oddly, his abs didn't seem to be the main thing getting a workout. One Tuesday evening while folding laundry, I found a receipt in his jeans pocket. 2 bottles of champagne. 1 box of condoms. A motel room reservation. Classic. For a moment I just stared at it. Heart-pounding brain trying to invent some innocent explanation like, maybe he's throwing a surprise party? For the condoms. But the truth settled in heavy and sharp. Mark was cheating. And here's the thing. When a woman finds out her husband's cheating, she has 2 choices. Cry. Or get creative. The next few days I played my part. Smiled. Cooked dinner. Kissed him goodnight. Meanwhile, my inner monologue sounded like a Quentin Tarantino script. I didn't want to confront him. Oh no, that would have been too easy. Mark loved drama. The kind he could twist into "you're overreacting, Jess." So instead I started watching. His phone habits, his schedule, even the way he started wearing cologne he'd never worn in our entire marriage. Then one night while he was working late, his iPad pinged. And there it was. A message from someone saved as Megan work. Megan. You better bring that stuff again, last time was amazing. Mark. Already packed, babe. You know I can't come empty-handed. Empty-handed. The irony. So I did what any emotionally stable, freshly betrayed woman would do at 11:45 p.m. on a Thursday. I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop and started Googling. Best way to expose cheating husband without going to jail. Google, disappointingly, was not helpful. But as I scrolled through revenge forums and TikToks about DIY karma, an idea started forming. See, Mark kept his private stash in the bathroom cabinet behind his expensive beard oil, a little bottle of personal lubricant, which he clearly wasn't using with me. And that's when my brain whispered something both evil and beautiful. What if the next time he tries to cheat, he can't? The next day while Mark was at work, I stopped by the hardware store. The cashier was a sweet old man named Earl. "What ya workin' on?" he asked, scanning the small tube of super industrial glue I'd picked up. "Oh," I said, smiling innocently. "Just a little household repair project." "Be careful with that stuff," he chuckled. "It bonds instantly." Instantly, I thought. Perfect. That evening, I waited for Mark to leave for his late-night gym session. As soon as I heard his car pull out, I went straight to the bathroom. The lube was right where I remembered. I poured it out, cleaned the bottle and carefully refilled it with the glue, thick, clear, odorless. It looked identical. I replaced the cap, wiped the counter spotless and stared at my reflection. "Jess," I said to myself, "you're insane." And then I smiled. "Yes. But you're also done being the fool." He came home late, showered, and went straight to bed like nothing had happened. The next morning he was whistling, as he left for work. I kissed him on the cheek, waved him out and sat by the window with my coffee. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far. The other part couldn't wait to find out. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:12 a.m. my phone started buzzing. It was Mark. I didn't answer. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally I picked up, sighing dramatically. "Hey honey. Everything okay?" What I heard next was pure chaos. "Jess. Call someone. I can't, we're stuck. We're stuck." My eyebrows shot up. Stuck. He was practically yelling. It's not what it sounds like, call 911. I bit my lip so hard I nearly drew blood trying not to laugh. "Oh no," I said sweetly. "Did you spill something?" "Glue. It's still. We can't move." I set my mug down carefully, heart pounding with equal parts satisfaction and disbelief. This was actually happening. 5 minutes later I heard sirens. The neighbors peeked out their windows. And I stood on my porch watching the firefighters rush toward the cheap motel at the end of our street. Because yes, that's where he'd been meeting her. Poetic justice doesn't usually wear a fireman's helmet, but that day it did. If there's one thing small-town America loves more than a bake sale, it's gossip. So when 2 fire trucks, an ambulance, and a police cruiser all screeched to a stop outside the Willow Motel at 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, you could bet your last cinnamon roll the entire neighborhood tuned in. And me? I was sitting on my porch swing sipping iced tea pretending I didn't know a thing. The fire chief, old Mr. Daniels, bless his soul, had been my neighbor for 20 years. I watched him waddle out of the truck, adjusting his helmet, muttering something about people getting themselves into the dumbest messes imaginable. I almost choked on my tea. I could picture it perfectly. Mark, panicking, trapped in his own web of stupidity, literally. The image was so vivid I had to bite my lip to keep from bursting into laughter. About an hour later my phone rang again. It was the police station. Mrs. Harper? Yes. This is Officer Keegan. We have your husband here. There's been a bit of an incident. Oh dear, I said, summoning my best concerned wife voice. Is he all right? A pause. Then, in the most awkward tone imaginable. Well, ma'am, that depends on your definition of all right. By the time I got to the motel, the parking lot looked like a crime scene. Yellow tape, news vans, and about half the town pretending they just happened to be driving by. A paramedic was standing by the door, shaking his head. In 20 years, he said. I've never seen anything quite like this. I stepped inside, heart pounding. The room smelled like embarrassment and cheap air freshener. And there he was, Mark, sitting on the edge of a stretcher, wrapped in a blanket, face redder than a stop sign. The situation had apparently required a creative rescue effort involving industrial solvent and a pair of very patient firefighters. Beside him stood Megan, looking like she wished she could melt into the carpet. Jess, Mark stammered. This isn't what it looks like. Oh really? I said sweetly. Because it looks exactly like what it looks like. Even the paramedic snorted. Mark tried again. It was an accident. Oh, I'm sure it was. Glue is tricky stuff, isn't it? He froze. Wait. You didn't. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't what? Replace your precious private bottle with industrial adhesive. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Somewhere outside, a reporter's camera flashed. And then the absurdity of it all hit me. The sirens, the chaos, the fact that my once perfect husband had literally glued himself to his mistress. I started laughing. Not a polite giggle. A full, uncontrollable, tear-streaming, gasping for air laugh. Ma'am, are you all right? One of the firefighters asked. Oh, I wheezed between laughs. I'm better than all right. By the next morning, the story had exploded online. Couple stuck together in bizarre motel incident. Fire department responds. There were memes, TikToks, even a local podcast episode titled, When Love and Glue Go Wrong. Mark became a legend, the kind no one wants to be. He couldn't show his face at work for weeks. Megan moved out of town. And me? I started getting flowers. From strangers. From women who'd written, "You're my hero." Apparently, poetic justice makes great clickbait. Still, I wasn't cruel. When Mark finally came home, I'd already boxed up his things, neatly labeled, color-coded, and stacked in the garage. On top of one box, I left a little note. Handle with care. It bonds instantly. He stared at it, face pale, and then muttered, "You're insane." I smiled. No, Mark. I'm finally sane. For the first time in years, I slept soundly that night. No more lies, no more pretending everything was fine. Just peace. And a faint trace of super glue still lingering in the air like victory perfume. By the end of the week, I wasn't just Jess Harper cheated on wife. I was Glue Girl. Apparently, when you accidentally turn your husband's affair into a fire department rescue operation, people find that hilarious. I woke up one morning to a flood of notifications. A friend texted, "You're on TikTok, Jess." Hashtag Glued for Life has 3 million views. Face with tears of joy fire. 3 million views. I didn't even have a TikTok account, but there I was, standing on my porch in my bathrobe, sipping iced tea like an unbothered queen, while firefighters stormed the motel behind me. Someone had filmed it. The caption read, "When karma finally gets a sense of humor." First I was mortified. Then I read the comments. This woman deserves an award. Glue Girl for president. Proof that women are smarter always. And just like that, mortified turned into empowered. Mark, meanwhile, was living through a PR apocalypse. His company put him on temporary leave. His gym friends ghosted him. Even the local pastor made a sermon about the dangers of sticky sin. He called me one night, voice low and desperate. "Jess, please. You have to tell people this was an accident." "Oh, honey," I said sweetly. "It was an accident. For you." Click. The media frenzy died down eventually, but something inside me had shifted. 4 years I'd built my life around being a good wife, supporting him, keeping things together. And in one wild twist of fate, everything came undone. And somehow I felt more whole than I had in a decade. I started going out again, joined a book club, signed up for pottery classes. Turns out I was pretty good at sculpting, something poetic about turning raw, broken clay into something strong and beautiful again. People in town stopped giving me pity looks. Now they gave me respect. Even the barista at the coffee shop started giving me free refills. One afternoon, I was picking up groceries when someone tapped my shoulder. "Excuse me, are you the Jess Harper?" I turned around to see a woman, maybe mid-40s, holding her phone. "My sister and I watched every interview you did. You're amazing." "I didn't do interviews," I said, laughing. She winked. "Oh, honey, internet did it for you." Before I could respond, a tall man behind her, probably her husband, grinned. "My wife says you're her spirit animal." I chuckled. "Tell her to pick a less adhesive one next time." The attention was surreal, but it also gave me perspective. People weren't just laughing at the chaos. They were cheering for the woman who finally stopped taking it. That night, I sat on my porch again. The same swing where I'd waited for Mark to come home that fateful day. Tucker, our golden retriever, rested his head on my lap. I looked up at the stars, exhaled, and thought, maybe this was the universe's weird, sticky way of setting me free. Then came the cherry on top of the karma sundae. A letter arrived in the mail, postmarked from Mark's company. Inside was a brief, painfully formal notice. This letter confirms the termination of Mark Harper's employment, following recent media events that have impacted company reputation. Attached was another envelope, divorce papers. He'd signed everything. I laughed so hard I scared the dog. He'd done it, the one thing I was too tired to do myself. That weekend, Carol, my best friend and next-door neighbor, came over with a bottle of rose. "To freedom," she toasted. "To glue," I said, clinking my glass. "To poetic justice," she added. We laughed until our sides hurt. By Monday, I decided it was time for something new. I listed the house for sale. I loved it, the white fence, the cozy rooms, but it was too full of memories that didn't fit anymore. When the realtor asked where I was planning to go, I shrugged. Somewhere warm. Somewhere where people don't know me as the woman who superglued her ex's affair. He laughed. "Good luck with that, ma'am." Later that night, I was sorting through boxes in the garage when I found one of Tom's, my late father's, old toolboxes. Inside, there was a note in his handwriting. "Measure twice, cut once. And if you make a mess, own it." I smiled. I'd made a spectacular mess. And I owned it. It's funny how quickly your whole life can change. Sometimes with a wedding, sometimes with a divorce, and sometimes with a tube of glue. 6 months after the Great Motel incident, as the local paper had dubbed it, my life looked nothing like it used to. The house sold faster than I expected. Apparently, the viral fame made it a local landmark. The buyers even joked they wanted to install a plaque. "Former home of Glue Girl. Where karma stuck." I told them to go for it. I packed my things, said goodbye to the white fence, and drove south. Just me, Tucker, and the open road. No GPS, no plan. For the first time in my life, I didn't need one. I ended up in a small coastal town in Florida. The kind of place where time moves slower and the air smells like salt and sunshine. I rented a tiny beach cottage, painted the walls seafoam green, and opened the windows wide enough to let the ocean sing me to sleep. Every morning I walked Tucker along the sand, coffee in one hand, peace in the other. Sometimes I'd still get recognized, even in Florida. One day a group of college girls ran up, giggling. "Oh my God, are you her?" One of them squealed. "Her who?" I asked, already smiling. "The woman who glued her husband. You're a legend." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my latte. Honey, that was a one-time thing. I've retired from the adhesives industry. Eventually, a local news anchor heard about my relocation and invited me for a lighthearted TV segment called From Heartbreak to Healing. I almost said no, but something inside me whispered, why not? So I went. They filmed me walking on the beach, painting pottery, laughing. The interviewer asked, Jess, if you could go back, would you do anything differently? I smiled at the camera. Yeah, I said. I would have bought the cheaper glue. It worked just fine. The studio erupted in laughter. That clip went viral too. But this time it wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. A few weeks later, I decided to celebrate. I went to the town fair, fried dough, live music, twinkling lights, the works. Tucker trotted beside me, tail wagging. While waiting in line for lemonade, a voice behind me said, You dropped your phone. I turned. Tall. Tan. Smiling in that effortless, easygoing way that made you forget your own name for a second. He held out my phone. You're Jess, right? Glue girl. I groaned. Don't tell me you've seen the memes. He chuckled. Seen them? I laughed so hard I spilled coffee on myself. Twice. Great, I muttered. My legacy lives on. He extended his hand. I'm Ben. Local carpenter. I build things. And hopefully I can help you avoid sticky situations. I couldn't help but laugh. Smooth, Mr. Carpenter. Very smooth. Ben and I started seeing each other casually. Beach walks, dinners, long talks about life and second chances. He never treated me like a joke, though. He treated me like someone who'd survived something ridiculous and come out stronger. One night over tacos he said, I think what you did was brave. Brave. I raised an eyebrow. I think most people would call it unhinged. Maybe, he said. But you didn't just get even. You got free. That line stuck with me. No pun intended. By the end of that summer, I wasn't Mark's ex-wife anymore. I wasn't Glue Girl. I was Jess. I had paint under my fingernails, sand in my hair, and laughter in my lungs. Mark emailed me once, just once. The subject line said, Can we talk? I didn't even open it. I just archived it with a smile. Some stories don't need sequels. One evening, Ben and I were walking Tucker by the pier when a couple stopped us. Excuse me, the woman said shyly. Are you the lady who glued her husband? Ben grinned before I could answer. She is. National treasure. The woman laughed, then said, I just wanted to say thank you. When your story went viral, I was going through something similar. It gave me courage. It reminded me I could leave too. Her husband squeezed her hand. She's happier now because of you. My throat tightened. I wasn't expecting tears. Not here under fairy lights smelling like popcorn and sea breeze. But they came anyway. Thank you, I said softly. That means more than you know. Later that night, I sat on the porch of my little cottage, watching the waves roll in under the moonlight. Life was quiet again, but not empty. Peaceful like the pause at the end of a great song. Tucker sighed contentedly at my feet. Ben was inside, humming to himself as he fixed the squeaky screen door. I sipped my tea and smiled. In the end, I realized something simple but true. You can't always control who betrays you, but you can absolutely control how you rise. After. And sometimes the thing that breaks your heart is exactly what sets you free. Epilogue. A year later, I started a small online business. Handmade pottery, bright colors, inspirational quotes carved into the clay. I called it Stick With Yourself. Took off instantly. Every mug had my favorite line etched into the bottom. Measure twice. Cut once. Own your mess.